Hello and welcome to ThePrint. This is Akanksha Mishra, and today we have with us a very special guest, a molecular biologist turned wildlife photographer turned National Geographic explorer and wildlife photographer, Prasanjeet Yadav. Thank you so much for being with us here, Prasanjeet. You're just here from your most recent success, which is that your photo of the rare black tiger or melanistic tiger of Simlipal is going to make the cover of the National Geographic magazine in October. So let's get right into it, Prasanji. Tell us about what was the process of capturing this photo. Our audiences will be seeing it on their screens right now, but just walk us through the process of how long it took and when you actually captured it, what was the feeling?
First of all, thank you so much for having me here, Kancha. This picture is very special. This picture took almost 120 days of me traversing across forest, understanding how the wildlife moves, collaborating with forest managers and forest officials, and understanding from them how these tigers move. And then following that, we knew that these tigers are very shy. They don't just come in front of your cars and you can just see them and photograph them. They are very rare. So uh, that meant that me and the National Geographic photo engineers had to come up with new and different ways of photographing them. So we decided to use camera traps. Camera traps are these studios that we set up into the forest where we knew that potentially a tiger would walk from. And then when the tiger comes, the camera automatically takes pictures of these animals, although we can entirely decide how that picture would look like. So it took us a long time. And then finally, on 115th day, I got a picture which was a good picture through my camera trap, and we knew that okay, this is a successful assignment because we have one picture. And then while I was removing my cameras on the last second day, I actually came across one of these. It just showed up in front of me, and this is a not a camera trap photo. This is actually me sitting in my car and this tiger in front of me. So I like to believe that the forest saw me work extensively for, for weeks and weeks and weeks and months. And then finally, this was the parting gift or a blessing from the forest for towards me. But I would also like to quickly add that this picture is beyond just what shows up onto the cover. The story is about the efforts that went into to understanding why these tigers are black. The collaboration between scientists and Odisha and Maharashtra Forest Department in knowing what makes them black. Is that a problem? If it is a problem, how to solve it and the solution to it. So I will request all your viewers to read the story as well.
Yeah, I was going to suggest that myself. Thank you for bringing that up. And that brings me to our next question, which is obviously this picture on the cover is, it's majestic, it's beautiful, but what do you think it signifies for Indian conservation at a global level? Because for our viewers that might not know, the melanistic tiger is only seen in India and only seen in the Simlipal Tiger Reserve in Odisha. And it's a rarity in the entire world. So, what do you think having that picture on a global magazine, a reputed magazine's cover, what does it signifies about the tiger conservation program in India?
To give a bit more insight on what this picture is and why these tigers are black, uh, these tigers are found only in the Simlipal Tiger Reserve, nowhere else in the world. So Odisha Forest Department collaborated with scientists from National Center for Biological Sciences in Bangalore to understand why they are black. And scientists found that there's a genetic glitch in their DNA, which is like a spelling mistake, which converted them or turned them from orange tigers with black stripes to black tigers with streaks of orange. And they also found that this genetic glitch or this mutation is only seen in tigers in Simlipal and no other tigers in wild, which means that these tigers are isolated. Now, when the managers and scientists found out, they were like, this means that they could be in trouble maybe 100 years down the line. Why should we wait for that? Let's address this issue now. If they are isolated, let's solve their isolation problem by bringing in tigers from Maharashtra, from the Stadovandhari Tiger Reserve, where the tigers are known to be very genetically diverse. So a new set of genes were brought in by bringing in two female tigers from Maharashtra and released in Odisha. Now, what this signifies is that India is not only working towards increasing tiger numbers, that we have already done. We have doubled our tiger numbers. It's also signifying that increasing tiger number is step one. Maintaining and managing that population is step two. And we are working towards it. If there are issues, India is spearheading the conservation efforts to solve those issues. And we are not only doing that in isolation, we are collaborating with scientists nationally as well as internationally to understand nature before we can solve the problems that come in. I think that's really important. The other thing is, uh, India is very well placed to talk about global, national, and global conservation issues because India is a country of 1.4 billion people, and we still have so much of wildlife. And global population is increasing too. So what's happening in India is what is coming from all the countries around as well in near or far future. So we can't wait for them to help us solve our problems. We are solving these problems, and hopefully, in long term, they'll learn from these problems as well.
That's very well put. And coming to my next question, which is that we spoke about how the Nat Geo cover is a great deal for India and for India's tiger conservation, but it's also, let's be fair, a very big deal for an Indian photographer, which is you. So, can you tell us a little bit about the process of being a Nat Geo wildlife photographer? Can you tell us about what are the behind the scenes of a wildlife photographer's lifestyle, and give us a little insight into that?
I consider myself a Nat Geo photographer and not specifically a wildlife photographer because if you look at this story as well, there are few photos of tigers, but there are equally photos of people and management. And as you can see, this is not a wildlife photo, all the tiger is in there. So as an adjunct photographer, we have to learn all different styles and genres of photography. One day I'm photographing a scientist in a studio or in someone's dark house or dim lit house. Other day I'm photographing a tiny plant in a macro setting. The day after that, I'm out there where there is some conflict issue happening and there's a lot of crowd which is trying to understand what's happening there, and I just have to be there with one camera and one lens and be a photojournalist and try and get the picture that's needed. And then there are beautiful days when I'm out there with my long lens waiting for an animal to show up. So as an active photographer, we need to learn all these styles, but beyond that, what is more important is for us to know what the story is. We have to read a lot about the research that goes behind. We need to learn a lot about the history behind the subject. And and on top of it, we also need to have the understanding of storytelling, that why is this story important for you and me, but at the same time, why should someone sitting in Paris or Uganda or Shanghai should care about this story? How is this relevant beyond your and my kin? I think all of those things come together. And and yeah, I mean, if I have to describe in few words, it's just constantly hustling and just solving problems. I think that's what Niger photographers do.
That's great. Thank you for that response. Now, to shift and talk a little bit about your own journey, which is you started off as a molecular biologist, and then you turned into a wildlife photographer. What prompted that shift? And what are, if you could draw any linkages of your past life as a molecular biologist and your current one as a wildlife photographer, what are some things that are still common that you have learned as you've shifted in this transition?
That's a great question. So wildlife was always part of my life. I grew up near Nagpur at a farm, uh, my father's farm, which is in literally close to forest, and we have wildlife coming in and out. So I always knew that I'm curious and crazy about wildlife. And I wanted to know the mysteries of wildlife. And to do that, I got into this path of research and academics and science. And I spent multiple years practicing research. But while I was doing that, I realized that the language of science is very technical, and it has to be. But when it comes to conservation as well as ecological science, it is equally important that the people, those who share space with wildlife and nature, need to understand about the science. I found that there was this gap that existed between the technical science and the larger audiences. And I was like, I would like to figure out a way to tell stories of science. As much as I enjoy doing academics, I enjoy telling stories of science much more. So one fine day, I was like, let me try my hand in doing this, and that's how the transition happened. And I think my all my stories till date are extremely influenced by my scientific background, because I can pick up a published or unpublished paper and make sense of it. And then I can figure out a way how to distill it, what is the most relevant and important point out of this, that changes or touches lives of people who are sharing space with this issue or subject, or those who are 10,000 kilometers away from it as well. So that helps me uh, make these stories relevant to people.
That's great. And finally, I just wanted to ask you because I think a couple of times before you mentioned how the role of a wildlife photographer is also that of a storyteller. Now, if I were to ask you, as a storyteller, with your story being this picture of the tiger in Simlipal, what is the story of the Simlipal tigers? What is the story of India's tiger conservation that the world needs to know?
I think I'm a storyteller first, and then I use different mediums like photography, writing, films to tell these stories. And I think the story of Indian tigers is the fact that we identified there was a problem, and then the country came together to solve it. The fact that in India today we have 75% of global wild tigers are in India, and we are also a country of 1.4 billion people, and we are still living with them. And there are there, there are always some small or big issues, but the fact that deep inside in the larger population of India, there is deep respect for nature and wildlife. I think that is the biggest success, and that is the biggest story that I think the world should care about.
Thank you so much for this, Prasanjeet, because I think it also goes to show that your photo, there is in terms of wildlife photography and in wildlife journalism, everybody knows how rare it is to be able to even capture a picture of the Simlipal tiger. You have done that and beyond. You also captured the story behind the Simlipal tiger, which is now going to be open for the entire world to read in the Nat Geo magazine. So, thank you again for being with us, and we look forward to more of your stories and more of your photographs. Um, and yeah, please, I'd love it if you could just hold up the Nat
Thank you
Geo
so much.
magazine.
Thank you, Akanksha. And this is the magazine, and I hope you get a chance to read this story. This wouldn't have been possible without the scientists and the collaborators and the forest officers with whom I worked. But at the same time, this yellow border, National Geographic, that we all love, they made this happen. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for tuning into the print.